Now, Alfred was a realist, he was a very educated man. He knew that if he killed Guthrum, which he could have done, and many would have done, it would have been a tit for tat. Someone else would come, and so it would have gone on and gone on. You know, there's no end to that when you start doing tit for tat. But Alfred was above that, and he started to talk to his defeated enemy and said, look, let's come to some arrangement and stop this fighting. Very, very skillful man. So they spoke about it and agreed to divide England between them, what we call England today. The Vikings could have half, and the Saxons could have the other half. And the dividing area would be roughly the old Roman Wapping Street. And that would be roughly the area that divided the two. Danes in the north, Saxons roughly, anyway, the northeast, and Saxons in the southwest. And that was quite clever, because now he bought time, and that's what he needed. After the guerrilla warfare period and defeat, he needed time to build his kingdom. But he gave one condition, and that condition, bear in mind that Alfred was a fundamental Christian, that he wouldn't kill him if he became a Christian, not that type. And Guthrum agreed to that. And so the two sides separated and divided England between them. This is how it was. England was divided between the two, where Derby was a frontier town. You don't think that, do you? But Derby was a frontier town between the north and the south. And an old Roman fort was used, place which is today called Chester Green. And that Roman fort was held by the Vikings for many years. But the towns of Derby, Leicester, and Nottingham were all in Danelaw. And so was London. London itself was also in Danelaw. Now at last, Alfred had peace, or relative peace. It was what he wanted. Now he could build his kingdom, make it stronger, which he used to great effect. He laid the foundation for many things, as we'll look at in a minute, much of which is still with us to this day in one form or another. For example, he married Princess of Mercia, uniting Wessex and Mercia together. Later, his daughter Ethelflaed also married the Lord of Mercia, linking them two together. But there, you know, what I said before, there's been constantly warring between Mercia and Wessex. And now he starts to look at defense of England. Because prior to this, the Vikings could come and there was no set places where Saxons could meet them. They were all scattered. So he reorganized it that every few miles, approximately 20, there would be a fort. And the name which has come to it from that time is Borough, or Borough. That meant fortress. So every few miles, he would have at least one of these boroughs. It's very, very clever planning, because now the Vikings came, there was enough defensive forts close by where they could come and defend their land. He also helped to shape the street plan of London, but that's later on in the story. So where you've got the word borough, or burh, it was one of Alfred's forts. Peterborough, Hillsborough, Farnborough, Scarborough, Loughborough, Attenborough, Market Harborough, Gainsborough, Knaresborough, Middlesbrough. They were all Alfred's forts. Now, a similar thing had happened with Roman forts. The word for Roman fort is Cassius, which is where we get the word castle from, but it also got converted to Chester. So where you've got the word Chester, it's a Roman fort. Obviously Chester itself, Chichester, Manchester, Winchester, Chesterfield, Dorchester, Chester Green. So the boroughs are Alfred Fort and the Chesters are Roman fort. Did you know that? Yeah. He also, in his defence, started a full-time professional army. Not been done before. Before this, they're what we call today territorial. People that were called up in times of emergency. But now he decided to have a full-time army that was called the household. We still use that term in the household cavalry. So the households were the first full-time professional army. And they were very, very successful. The Navy. He now built many, many ships. Only the ships that he built were longer and bigger than the Viking ones. So he's rightly being called the founder of the British Navy. Education. As I said earlier, Alfred was educated. He wrote this. He said, this is his own words, so general was the Latin decay in England that there were very few on this side of the Humber who could understand Latin into English. So few that I cannot remember a single one south of the Thames when I came to the front. You see, Latin had been the official language that the Romans had gone. Now English had taken over, but the education system didn't work, there wasn't one, and they couldn't translate Latin into English, which gave a few problems. Very few people could read and write, very few. So, again, he says here, he had books translated into English from Latin. It says the most needful for men to know and bring it to pass. He wanted to educate his people, and he went about it in a big way. He said he had books translated and written on geography, philosophy, history, and copies of which were given to the bishop. He also, and this is very important, he also started to write what was called the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. It was the first time since Romans left that we now had written history. But prior to that, we call it the Dark Ages, because there's so very little written. Only one or two that wrote anything in that period that survived. So now he started to record details of his own people's history. Very, very important to us. And his bishop, Bishop Asser, as I said earlier, also wrote his own Alfred's biography. So now he's laying the foundation for education. We now have official records of what was happening. But prior to that, it was all word of mouth. And word of mouth is not reliable. This is a wonderful jewel. It's called the Jewel of Alfred, and round the side of it, it says, Alfred ordered me to be made. It's made of gold and enamel. Beautiful, isn't it? And it's a pointer. In that bottom there'll be a wooden pointer, so that you held that in your hand and pointed as you read. Now you think, well, why did I want to have a pointer? You don't need pointers to read. But you didn't have to read letters like that. In those days, they didn't have paragraphs, and very little in the way of sentencing. That came in Shakespeare's time. So it was just one solid block of writing. You would need a pointer to follow it to see where you were. And he had several of those sent around the country, and there are still one or two in existence. Beautiful artwork. So his education then helped to pave the way for public schools. His law code formed the basis for legal reforms. And he's had, by doing all this, saved the English language from oblivion. Now the legal side of things. He's set it still on that. He's done the defense, he's done the navy, he's done the education, now he's doing the legal. Up until his time, legal side was word of mouth. Well, King so-and-so did this, so we do that, and so it's all word of mouth. But now he formed the first written legal code. And one of the great kings prior to Alfred was Offa, the man from Offa's dad. And those laws have never been written down. So now Alfred starts to have them written down and recorded. And this is what he actually said, his own words. I collected all these laws together and ordered to be written, many of them, which our forefathers had observed, but not written. That's Alfred's own words. So really, he is the foundation of England. Rather than have warring local parochial kingdoms, he wanted a strong, united kingdom that would be able to resist alien offences against him. He restructured the towns, and what he promised the people who were going to man the boroughs was that if you are on hand to man the boroughs, then you can have land free of charge. So that was quite a good offer to the people to start defending these boroughs and at the same time farming the land. He attacked London later, and by doing that, he took it along with his son-in-law, who was another Ethelred of Mercia, and that is one of the first English pennies to be formed. It's got the word Londoni superimposed, one letter on top of the other on the reverse side. So if you find one of them, you can have a good long holiday. It's worth quite a lot of money. But that was one of the very first pennies, because in those days, the basis of our currency was the silver penny. So many silver pennies into £1, hence the word pound coming in. He died at the age of 50 in the year 899 and was buried in Winchester. But he laid the foundation for the England that we know today. His son, Edward the Elder, now became king. Now, his son was not quite up to his father, but he was good. He started to chip away at Danelaw, little bit by little bit. And Edward the Elder had a sister, Alfred's daughter. And she is one of the most fascinating ladies in English history. His sister Ethelflaed was a warrior queen. She's from Mercia, and she was quite a fearsome lady. Between them, the children of Alfred started to drive the Danes out, bit by bit. So now, just look a little bit at Ethelflaed. It really is sad that there's not more known about her, because she is a wonderful character from history. She attacked Derby. They've united the kingdoms of Mercia and Wessex, but in 917, she attacked the stronghold of Derby, the frontier town, which the Vikings had held for 52 years. You don't hear this, do you? They held its stronghold for 52 years, and she herself attacked it See the statue of her there, she's got a sword in hand. And she defeated the Danes at Derby. She later went on to attack Leicester and Tamworth, again beating the Danes. All these great battles that this lady fought, a warrior queen, and hardly anybody knows her, Ethelflaed, the daughter of Alfred. That is her statue in Tamworth Castle, but there's not enough made of her. I'd like to see a lot more myself. Lady of the Mercians, the daughter of Alfred the Great. Why was she so poorly represented in history? Difficult, and you can argue different ways on this, but a lot of the evidence seems to say that the recorders of the history of that period didn't want to admit that England was formed by the help of a woman. That's all we can assume, because that is a fact, and that is what happened. That the later recorders of history didn't always give her the credit she truly deserved. And her father had died at the age of 50, and now she died at the age of 45. Nobody lived very long in those days, nobody. After the death of Edward the Elder, Alfred's son, his grandson took over, Alfred's grandson, Ethelstan. Have you ever heard of the name Ethelstan? Yeah, one or two of you. Some people have never even heard of it. And yet he is the first true king of all England. Yet very few people know that, but he is the first true king of all England. He was 11 years after Elder died, Ethelstan took over. Now, in this illustration, it's the oldest illustration of any English king, the one on the left there. He's in this manuscript handing over a book, beads writing on the life of St. Cuthbert, theoretically handing it over to the dead saint. But that's the oldest recorded illustration of any English king. Now, Ethelstan then, he's still fighting the Danes, but they've been getting stronger, the Saxons, and defeating them. Now, that's his effigy, by the way, in Malmesbury's alley, that it was made in the 15th century, so it's not really him that we know of. He'd been raised up as a boy by his aunt, and his aunt was Ethelflaed, the warrior queen. So he was brought up in her household. And now he was conquering the last remaining Viking-held areas of England. And then all of a sudden, a coalition got together as the usual suspects to fight the Saxons. The Irish, the Vikings, and the Scots decided to form an alliance to fight the Saxons, which they did. And they came together at a place called Brunanburg. For a long time, people didn't know where that was. Now we've got conclusive evidence that it was in the Wirral, near Liverpool. And the battle was fought in the year 937 with the two opposing armies, and Athelstan, the head of the Saxon army. This time, there were two shield walls. They'd learnt, the opposition, that they got to use that kind of warfare. And at the Battle of Brunanburg, it was very, very bloody, because in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, it says this: never was there greater slaughter seen on these islands. That's in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. Thousands died that day. The victory by Ethelstan cemented his place as king, and it cemented England as one country under one king. So in one day, in one field, England was born. The birth of England, 937. Not a date that runs off the list. This is perhaps as important a date and event as 1066 and Hastings, and yet it's hardly known about. But Brandenburg 937 was the day and the year that England was formed. In building England, Alfred had laid the foundation. His children had built the walls. Now his grandson put the roof on. For the first time, England was now one country. That's the flag of England. It's a bit like the Welsh one, but no, that's what it was. That's the white dragon of England. And that is the same flag that Harold fought under at the Battle of Hastings. Now, my book here, The Fall of Saxon England, you can have special rates at £9 a copy. It's a light novel, a light read covering the last year of Saxon England from the Christmas Day 1065 through the Christmas Day 1066. Nice light sort of read for you, but I hope I don't have to carry them all back with me. But you can have one for £9 each. There are a lot more if you go to Amazon. And you've got postage on top of that. So let's sum it up. Alfred, a soldier, a scholar, a statesman, the founder of England. No other man in English history is like him. Without Alfred, England would not exist. Neither would the English language. It would have been lost as a forgotten language in the midst of time. So Alfred, he is the man who made England. Therefore, a great man. Thank you.